and welcome back to all of our colleagues joining us online. We're going to move on with our expert presentations, and this time we're going to hear from Northern Europe, from Sweden. Sweden has, of course, a great track record when it comes to road safety and is always there at the top of the table. This is the presentation we're going to hear next is about good practice in building safer roads. So we're turning to the infrastructure side of things with Lars, sorry, excuse me, Lars, Lars Ekman, who has a long history at the Swedish Transport Administration and can share with us the benefit of his expertise and experience in building safer roads. So Lars, over to you.
Thanks ever so much. It's so nice to be in this building with lots of friends, and I have to say thank you for all kinds of kind words I've got from condolences about the things that happened yesterday. I don't feel very offended myself, but nevertheless, thanks for your kind words. I should see if I can change. No, I can't. To my next picture. Nevertheless, I will talk about the exchange program and something that I find very nice. Now it's my picture, and this is me, and everything I say when it comes to traffic safety is within the framework of Vision Zero, and I can't help myself because that's what we do, and I will even use the Vision Zero Academy logo for that's what we call our work internationally when it comes to traffic safety. And it's two-handed. Yeah, we have been involved in the previous project with great joy and good exchange with Portugal and Lithuania. We have had quite a lot of exchange with Lithuania. We even have a Nordic Vision Zero group that have conferences every now and then. And I thought I was the one should say that we have started already, but I've mentioned several times. This was when we had a visit in August in Sweden, where Lithuania came to us. And of course, I will show 2+1 road and talk about Vision Zero and other things. And we also had a study visit to Stockholm. And I find this picture interesting because it could have been taken today, before and after, where the city have reclaimed area for cyclists and so on. So very much the same work, even though I'm more impressed by Brussels, but don't tell anyone. So that's something that is very important. We need to get inspired by others and looking at things. And I was very inspired today during the walk as well. And the reason we are involved is also to get things, bring back things to Sweden, because we are very afraid that you will all catch up and beat us when it comes to traffic safety. And we will have to make sure that that will not happen, that we will also improve our situation. But when it comes to the safe roads and so on, I always want to start with the model we have for Vision Zero, where we have the underlying fundaments, namely the biomechanical tolerance, the kind of people we are, and that cannot change. That is a fundament that we can't change. But the other things we can change. We can change behavior. We can change vehicles, and we have seen quite a lot of improvements when it comes to cars over the last year. I'm sorry to say I haven't seen similar improve in safety when it comes to cyclists. Rather seems that they have smaller wheels, no brakes, and go faster, call e-bikes, e-scooters or whatever. So I should like to see more improvement in that aspect. But what I think is so important is actually that we could create a safer infrastructure. And some people say it's extremely expensive, but there is another side of improving road infrastructure, that it lasts for quite a long. If we do something wrong now, that will last for 30 or 50 years. On the other hand, if we do something really good in infrastructure now, that will last for decades. Whereas if we do a campaign or enforcement things, that doesn't last as close to as long as when we build safe road infrastructure. So I think that a very encouraging thing is actually that when we build. And I've seen figures here about the budget for road safety work. We don't have such a big budget in Sweden, because the most important things when it comes to road infrastructure is actually road infrastructure projects, where there are lots of big zeros behind, where it's very, very expensive. If those expensive projects are built in a safe way, then we could actually gain quite a lot of traffic safety. It's not by safety money, it's by money for improve the road infrastructure. And in cities, if you combine traffic safety with livability and lots of other things, that's really how traffic safety could be improved. So we know that these three elements and the regulator here is actually speed. And that safe speed is totally different on a motorway or in an area where we have totally mixed traffic. The speed must be much lower if pedestrians and cyclists are involved. If they are not present as on motorways or in 2+1 road, you could have quite a lot, much higher speed. But sadly to say that nothing really new here. The two tracks we could actually do when we create safe infrastructure is either separation, which is when it comes to pedestrian crossing and things like that, and that is bridges, tunnels and things like that, rather expensive. And when it comes to rural roads, it's actually the mid-barrier, what we call motorway, 2+1 road or whatever, turning or taking away the head-on collision, which is one of the most important issue. Because we know that if all traffic is going the same direction, it could be rather safe and quite quick as well. I mean, on a Formula 1 race, they go extremely fast. They have very, very nice side area, but not many people get killed. But you could imagine if 50% of the contest going the other way around on a Formula 1 track, it will be quite a big parking spot for ambulances. So I think that's a very, very important thing, that the separation in terms of separating away head-on collisions, and if you get outside the lane, you should end up in a barrier rather than in a tree. And we know really how that could be dealt with. But most people don't see the danger. I really regret I didn't bring my favorite picture, which is actually a balcony without a balcony railing, and asking, what do we do when we have a balcony without a balcony railing? Oh, we close the door and throw away the handle. And I don't find any good signs for balconies without a balcony railing, warning sign. And I don't find lots of studies with which families are most prone to fall out of balconies without a balcony railing. But that's what we have in traffic. But when it comes to balcony, everybody understands the problem. But most of you, maybe not you, but most of other people don't see the danger in this picture. That a head-on collision in 90 kilometers per hour could be fatal. Smashing into a lamppost is fatal. But what I see is actually that the possibility of this exactly the same spot where you put up a mid-barrier and side fences, side barriers or whatever they call it. Here it's even wildlife fencing as everything. We know that and we see that, but we don't treat it in the same way as we do with balconies. We have loads and loads of roads where we actually have speed that can't cope with head-on collisions, but we don't have a mid-barrier. And we know the solution. So that is one of the things we need to change. So, and that could be a different way of using it. The reason why we are talking so much about 2+1 road in Sweden and in other Nordic countries and so on is that we have a huge network where the requirement for high speed is high, but the volume is low. So the motivation for motorways or four-lane road is low. So we need to do the cheapest possible. And now we're actually experimenting with even cheaper 2+1 road in the north of Sweden, where we have very, very low volume, but a need for high speed. Then we got the question, we have virtually no money. What should you do to improve safety? And we said, if we only can ask for one thing, then it's the mid-barrier. And then, yeah, but then what about overtaking and possibility? Oh, we have to cope with that. So now we're trying to build 2+1 road with very little overtaking possibility because the traffic is low, and no other features, no changing the intersection, whatever, because the mid-barrier is the most important one. But we have a long tradition of this 2+1 road, and we have rather good results from them and extremely good acceptance. And we also had the benefit of actually quite a lot of our roads were rather wide. They were 13-meter wide already before with a wide shoulder, so we can rebuild them rather cheaply. But nowadays the rebuilding of to 2+1 road tend to be more and more expensive, partly because we have added new nice to have things when we built 2+1 road, and also that we don't have the width. So that's why it's interesting to say that we actually could test a cheaper version of it. But when it comes to urban situation, the typical Vision Zero countermeasure is actually to turn a signal control intersection into a roundabout. And the interesting thing from a principal point of view is that you actually increase the number of crashes when you introduce a roundabout, because there are very few crashes in a signal control intersection. But when it happens, they could be fatal. Whereas in a roundabout, you have lots of tiny crashes. That is actually a matter of insurance company, but not any injuries and anything like that. And you have a second chance. You learn from it. Well, I shouldn't do that. But if you walk against red in a traffic signal control, quite often you will not have another chance learning from something like that you shouldn't do. But if you're driving too fast in a roundabout or not looking, being attentive, you either have to buy a new car or at least adjust your wheels or whatever if you're running in the grass in the middle. And this is actually an example, our picture from where we introduced roundabouts decades ago. So I did conflict studies here, and we saw an old man doing everything wrong. He went to the left, doing the wrong turn in a roundabout. And what happened? I mean, lots of blowing the horn and words I can't say, and I don't know in English, and things like that. People say, oh, he was stupid. But the consequences, well, he didn't need to go to hospital, nor did the others. But if we have run through the red light, it could be really dangerous. So this is, in principle, good learning that some of the Vision Zero countermeasures could actually result in more crashes, but the consequences when it comes to injuries and injuries is actually lower. So, I mean, the old way, when I was teaching traffic safety many, many years ago, we were about to reduce crashes. It's not the case anymore. We want to reduce or eliminate fatalities and seriously injured. And that results in different countermeasures. And the reason why roundabouts are so good is actually that they naturally slow down to speed where you actually can cope with most of the mistakes. And it's also, from a behavior point of view, rather simple, because it's a one car to another car, or one car to a cyclist or pedestrian interaction. rather than a traffic signal where you get the message. It's all clear, you're green light, and maybe you're not prepared for the pedestrian actually to walk out in front of you, because she can't or should not do that. But if she do it, it's really an important one. And then, of course, we are fiddling quite a lot with speeds, and now I realize that should be an 80 kilometers per hour sign here rather than the 40, because that's what we have been dealing quite a lot in Sweden. We have reduced the 90 kilometers per hour, 90 or even 100 kilometers per hour on a 2-lane road just with a painted center line down to 80 kilometers per hour. And that is much due to physics. Is it possible to create a modern vehicle that could cope with these speeds? This is actually when you combine active and passive safety. What is the upper limit? And then the car industry said, well, it's impossible to create a car that can cope with speeds above 80 kilometers per hour to have a survivable crash speed, because we can do, or they can do, cars that can have survivable crashes in 60, and the active part could actually reduce it from 80 down to 60. And then it's rather strange that we should build new roads or have roads that not even the most modern vehicle can cope with. So this is kind of a logic border that we want to deal with, and that's why we quite a lot talk about 40 or 30 in urban areas, because speeds above 40, the modern vehicles protection system, the active system, which is more important in urban situations, they don't work at those speeds. Yeah, and it's very difficult to have speeds above 110 kilometers per hour if you have big animals, as we have in Sweden quite a lot. But then it's really important to ensure that we actually get low speed, and this is something that I want to show that I think it's rather important, and we have been quite a lot behind, and that is actually speed reducing countermeasures on the rural environment. I mean, apart from roundabouts, we have not been working quite a lot. And this is a road design that is, in a rather mild, almost nudging way, reduce speed to 70 kilometers per hour in an intersection. It's a 2+1 road where people otherwise would have been driving into the intersection in 100 kilometers per hour. They will meet a very gentle turn, but we have now evaluated in a good project with drones actually measuring people, and then you could see that the average speed is below 70 kilometers per hour when they come into the intersection. And it was kind of interesting because one of the young researchers said, well, this is strange. I could easily drive in 100 here. But they don't, because it's uncomfortable and feel natural to do it. And you don't need to imply countermeasures that are really penalty for trucks and so on, that they should go down to 20 or something like that. So this is something that I find kind of interesting. And no, I should go that way. And you could actually see that it could be done within the area that we already have. You don't need to buy new land and so on, which is very important if we should do it in large scale. So speed reducing countermeasures even in the rural situation is something that I think we will see much more of and hope that we will see much more of. And our new classification system of intersections is actually sensitive for this, the speed and the speed reducing countermeasures. But then it's back to the really basic. Speed humps are very, very effective, and we want to see much more of that. And you see that in many different forms, and this is the very traditional hump, still very efficient. if you really want to reduce speed, this is what you have to use much more. In Gothenburg, when we take people there to look at, they are very much in favor of a type where you have bump in and no bump out to make it a little bit more comfortable for buses and so on. And buses is a problem. So here in Malmö, they tried a version where they have not as steep ramps for buses and so on. And that's something that is interesting to share experience for those different things. And if you want to have a more fancy one, you could have an active speed bump that is actually only affecting those who are speeding. And this is from the toll station between Copenhagen and Malmö. And these works quite well. And of course they're very expensive, but they are so much cheaper than a tunnel or a bridge. And they are always used. The problem with tunnel and bridges is sometimes people don't feel safe in the tunnel or on the bridge, so they don't use it. So I think this is one of the area where we need to see more innovative solutions, because we need to reduce speed in order to achieve the Vision Zero. And infrastructure is one very good way to do that. And of course, we want to have traffic safety cameras. We prefer to call them traffic safety cameras in Sweden, and we have very good reason for that, because they are extremely popular, and we are not evaluating them on how much money they're taking or how many penalties we have, but rather if we reduce speed or not. And there is a huge acceptance for safety cameras in Sweden. We have, I think, 2,200 speed cameras today, often set in series, so a whole road, you will know that it's actually speed control. And I think we have a request one a day for people. We want safety cameras on my street. We want it in my village. We're afraid of us children to school, and they're driving so fast on this rural road. So we have to prioritize where they make the most use, not because people are annoyed by the traffic, but where we save lives mostly. And this is also an extremely good collaboration between the road or transport administration and the police. We actually have a very good collaboration over many, many years, which is very, very strict when it comes to legal things. It need to be no doubt that you actually have done it. And we have a driver responsibility, which makes it much more complicated, because we have to identify the driver. But the police are good at that. And we also have, as we have heard before, very keen on that. They should get the letter within a week. If we can't cope with that, we throw the fine in the bin, so we shouldn't have old issues. And that's where we have really got some good acceptance, and the police and the legal part is also quite satisfied with this. But it's hard work. Each and every one of these locations are checked every week for the signage and that everything is in order. So it's on 2,200 locations. They need to be checked every week. If they are not, the camera is closed. So you can't claim that, oh, there was no sign there, because we were checking it every week, and if there was the week before and the week after you got a penalty, it's very unlikely that someone had destroyed it and then put it up again. So the legal part of this is actually quite good. And so we have extremely good respect for these traffic safety cameras. And we plan to have 200 more every year. We have some problems, technical problems. It's very difficult to get electricity out in the wilderness, which is kind of weird problem, but we can cope with that. So that was actually what I wanted to say, that I still think road infrastructure is one of the most important part to achieve Vision Zero. And we can do it, and if we do it good, it lasts for quite a long time.
Thank you. Thank you, Lars. Lots of great information in there. I love the framing of the traffic safety cameras rather than speed cameras. It really makes it positive. Lars, if you could join me up on the stage, please. Does anyone have a question for Lars at this point? Yes, with Montes. We'll get a microphone to you.
Thank you, Lars. I will not raise any questions because we got all answers during exchange event. But I would like to say once again thank you for your clear view about zero vision, and your country experience really helped for us to change environment in the roads, and why we asking you to organize a little bit earlier road safety exchange event, because we updating zero vision program, and we have specific questions about road safety infrastructure management and traffic speed cameras systems, of course 2+1 road, and we got all answers, and all answers was made in the right time and in the right place. So once again, thank you for you, Lars, of course for Antonio's excellent team, and for Commission, because Road Safety Exchange is an excellent tool if you want to find the new ideas, and because we need to learn from each other. And thank you.
Delighted to hear it. Thank you. Malina.
Thank you. Malina Kurumova from the State Agency Road Safety in Bulgaria. When you say that if the letter does not reach the offender within a week, you throw it in the bin, like how is that exactly done legally? I mean, I like the idea. I mean, obviously an offense should be punished immediately, otherwise it loses effectiveness. But how do you do it? I mean, it's already issued, the letter itself.
No.
It's working. It's working.
It's working. Oh yeah. So no, it's not issued. I mean, I don't know. The police they throw it before it's official. In the same way as if the picture is not really good and you have trouble identify the driver, you just skip it. And also, I mean, it's in reality it's done in a way that we don't collect more pictures than we can cope with, because I mean, of course, you cannot. Or in our system, we cannot find everyone who's driving above the speed limit. And we are very keen on having no margins, so we only take those who speed a lot. So it's only 5 kilometers per hour margin, which is the technical or margin, so to say. So actually we stop collecting when there is a queue, so to say. So that's how it's done. So it's done before that. I mean, if lots of people are sick at the office that do that, we take less. Or I don't know.
Okay. Christina?
Thank you very much. It was concerning this question because how is it? I mean, I can understand the idea, and it's really good that you just can take what you can cope with, but how is that seen for the population? Because this could be, I mean, this could give an idea that I can speed a little bit more, because it could be a moment that, I mean, they cannot cope with all. So, I mean, I'm just thinking in the really bad way, but we are trying to deal with that problem exactly, and now with the directive, and how with this seen for the population?
Well, the population don't know when it's working or active. It's not a bigger problem than if you have people out on the street, they go for lunch. So what about all those speeding when they're on lunch? So it's actually not an issue. It sounds a little bit, how should I say, not very serious when I say throw them in the bin, but rather we make sure that they get the ticket within a week with our selection system, so to say. So it's actually not that we pick out or someone picks out who is be thrown or not. It's rather that we don't gather more cases than we can cope during this time level. So instead of working on the old data, we could take new.
Jacqueline.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in Germany we have only 3 kilometers of margin, not 5 as in Sweden. This is interesting to compare, really, because this has an influence on the psychology of the road or the vehicle driver. How much margin do I have? I mean, 3 is not too much, and in some federal states they would like to have it rather to 0, yes. But this is another question. My question is, do you have in Sweden a lot of court trials or court decisions regarding the truth of the proof of the camera? For example, in Germany, this is a good business for lawyers, because when you got a fine or the photo, then you can argue that the camera was not calibrated enough, or that it didn't fulfill, or the angle was not correct, or something like this. This is impressive how many arguments are given to show that you cannot be fined because XY reasons, And how is this in Sweden? Is this also, and I would say that in Germany some people, they see this in a sportive way, yes? I got a fine and then I will try if I can drop it, yeah,
Yeah, I do understand your question. But first to say that, well, in principle, we don't have any margin. It's actually that there is a cosinus effect that has been difficult to count with, and it's just a technical margin. So it's actually it's not allowed to go above the speed limit. But in reality, there are some kilometers per hour because you need to be on the safe side. And I say, no, we don't have many cases, partly because you get the picture, you could see yourself in your fine, and also that we have such a rigorous test of the system, and also this checking every week that things are in order at the location. And so it took us quite an effort to get the legal part correct. I don't know whether judges or prosecutors. So we need to have this established, and then they don't have a case. These claiming that it's possible to it should measure wrong or something like that. It's so well checked in advance. So I don't think that we have. I mean, I presume we have some few, but that is not a big issue. Our biggest issue is that we should have liked to have more cameras.
Thank you very much, Lars. That's an excellent intervention. I had a question myself about motorcyclists and 2+1 roads, but I'll deal with that maybe offline. Thank you so much. I think we'll give you a round of applause to Lars for his intervention. You stay with us? You stay here? Mm-hmm. Our next speaker is from Finland. It's their first time participation in the Road Safety Exchange, so we're delighted to have Kalle Partkari, the Road Safety Director at the Finnish Crash Data Institute, OTI, with us to talk about in-depth collision investigation. Kalle, over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. And it's an honor to be here today in front of you all. Thank you very much for European Commission and ETSC for inviting us to this great project, and very nice to see you all. I will discuss about the collision investigation, and first I would like to mention that there will be different words in this presentation. We talk about collisions, we talk about accidents, maybe crashes. In this presentation, they all mean the same thing. There is nothing different meanings loaded into these expressions. They come from legislation, they come from other discussions and so on. Just to be clear about, if I talk about collisions, if I talk about accidents, it's the same now. So, first about history, for your information. In Finland, this investigation was started in 1968. So we have a very long experience on the issue, and from the beginning it has been OTI and its predecessors who have maintained this activity. It was identified such an important topic by our government in 1990s that it became legislated in 2001, and after a little revision in 2016 it's still legislated, which is very important. And while OTI maintains the activity, from the beginning it has been a cooperation with different stakeholders. From the beginning there was vehicle administration, road administration, police forces, ministries, other stakeholders who together were participants in building this kind of system. So it's a common issue for all road safety activities in Finland. And at the moment we have a cooperation group with different stakeholders, and in each year we discuss about our action plan, what kind of accidents we will be investigating, and then it is sent to nowadays to the Finnish Transport and Communications Agency, and who is deciding for funding for us. And fatal collisions have been in our action plan already from 1980s, all fatal ones. In 1970s we had about over 1,000 fatal accidents in Finland, and nowadays about 200, but since 1984 we have investigated all fatal collisions with motor vehicles, and from 1997 also all fatal accidents considering pedestrians and cyclists. And in addition to fatal accidents, we are, of course, because we are trying to get to Vision Zero, we are increasing the number of serious injuries that we are investigating, because you get actually much more information from those accidents where participants are alive and can be interviewed. We have at the moment a total of 20 independent teams across Finland who are actually doing the investigations, about 300 different members there who work part-timers. They usually have their full-time jobs somewhere else, and when this kind of collision happens, which is within our action plan, they can be used for our team members and go to accident site and begin the investigation. So in that sense, because it's also regionally active people there working, we get a lot of people in different regions who know about background, what is in background of serious accidents. So it's not only our knowledge which is growing, but also in regions, all those who are part of this investigation get a lot of knowledge about road safety. And why are we doing this? It's for safety, it's for safety, it's for safety. We don't touch in guilty issues. There is police forces who are doing investigations and finding out who is guilty. There's insurance companies who try to find out who is paying. But this is a road safety investigation, and it can be used only for safety issues. That is very important. In that way we can ask questions, people can answer what really happened without trying to think what might happen if they give us some information. We want increased safety. And for that, we try to find out what happened, why it happened, and how to prevent those serious consequences, or even whole collision from happening. Those are the questions we ask and we want to answer. Our investigations are multidisciplinary, so we have different kind of experts in teams. In each accident, we have 5 different expertise areas present in investigation. There is a, we call it police member, who is a team leader, who organizes the investigation, gets the alarm that a serious collision has happened, and collects the team and organizes the investigation in each case. There's a vehicle specialist who has own tasks, road specialist. Those are the core members who usually try to get on site. And also we do have a physician who looks at health issues, and very important is, of course, people with psychology background who try to find out actions of the participants. So this is our team each accident, and if we need more expertise, we can use it. If there is a train, for example, railway crossing accident, we can ask railway specialists. If there are dangerous goods involved in this, we can ask expertise from that area. So it's not limited in these members' expertise areas. Basically unlimited only, which limits is to how much we can pay and what kind of expertise is there available. But legislation does not limit this one. So in depth, that is each accident is investigated individually with these expertise areas. We look at vehicles, vehicle defects. Are they present or not? Has that contributed to the accident taking place or to consequences? And well, most usual finding is tires, at least in Finland. The condition of the, are there right tires for the conditions? Do they have enough threat depth? Is there any other issues with tires? That's a very common vehicle defects. Vehicles are quite safe nowadays. And of course, now we are going into automated vehicles, and that's very important. And interesting question, what we will be finding out when we have collisions with new vehicles. In that kind of accident, that should not happen, but it's a progress we are going towards at the moment. Road is present in each accident. What are the conditions of the road? If there is a problem with guidance, and why it's possible to have a collision between 2 participants. Is the road contributing to it or not? So it's touched in each investigation. Also injuries. What kind of injuries did the victim have? What are the health factors behind this? As we start the investigation, we don't know what happened, and in many cases we found probably that actually it was natural death. Very gross health factors behind it. Those are not included in official statistics, but we investigate about 10% of our investigations annually in fatal ones are actually natural deaths. People are in that kind of condition that they die while driving. And this is something that disappears from official statistics, and it's very difficult to find from other countries the information on it. And this is, of course, a driving license issue and issue for society. And if it is really dangerous for other participants, people has to die somewhere. So is dying at wheel, it is dangerous for himself or herself, probably not. But if there's a problem for other participants in traffic, that unsteered vehicle is moving in environment and driver is not able to do anything, that sounds dangerous. Very often these kind of health issues are actually people can slow down and without collision actually. So that's why we are talking about accidents and crash investigations and different kinds of, there's no collision in each accident we are actually investigating. And of course nowadays that the driver can still affect his actions. Cars are not doing everything at the moment and will not be for some time. The actions and motives of the drivers are very important in each accident. What we do find often is that the driver is not behaving correctly, either accidentally or on purpose. We gather information on that one. We try to find out motives behind why he was breaking the rules, what was the reasons behind it. And in each accident, we check all the registers behind and collect in the database that we can use for road safety issues. We go on site as soon as possible where we can find what tracks the vehicles are still at the place that they stopped after the collision. Those are very important. We can take photos, there, measurements, interview maybe participant really quick after the collision has happened to find out what really happened. Usually, in many cases, the story changes after a while for a reason or another. And we then, on site, we do initial vehicle inspection and initial road condition checks and even initial reconstruction of the accident sequence. I mentioned about legislation, and I have to emphasize this is very important. It gives us right to act, right to go to the site. It gives us restrictions on cooperation. For example, we do cooperation, of course, with police, rescue services on site. It's very important. There are many different kind of organization at the collision site, and it's very important to have some kind of restrictions, who is doing what, and what is the responsibility of which one. And we have to do cooperation, and we likely do cooperation at the accident site, and try not to harm other organization inspections and investigations, and try to get help from them for our investigations. And of course, confidentiality issues nowadays are a growing issue, and we got a lot of data from health issues and so on. So we have to be very careful, and legislation is very important to show what we can do, what we cannot do. And also it gives a help in a matter of financing. It explains how this activity can be financed. Other important issue is the method we use for investigations. We have 20 different independent teams, so we have to make sure that they conduct the investigation in a similar way. So we can compare all the results of them. We can make sure that they are collecting same kind of data from accidents. They are analyzing the accidents in the same way. So as we investigate all fatal ones, so then we can get a comprehensive data on all fatal accidents, which is collected in the same way. In statistical issues, it's usually very easy, but now we are talking also about analysis, and we are talking about human people doing the analysis and the investigations, so things get a little bit more complicated in that way. So we have to have very solid method that the members are using and knowing what they do, and the method gives those kind of instructions for. And
very often it's a human way to find out what happened, why it happened, find the defects. But it's very important in investigations also to rule out what did not happen, what was not present in these collisions. And this method also gives those checks what kind of data we have to collect. That later on, when some researcher, for example, looks at the case and wonders, well, was this issue present in this collision or not? And if it's not answered, the researcher cannot be sure was it thought of in investigation. So it's very important to make a check in our data on those kind of issues. For example, tires. Was there good or bad? So if we had documented it and mentioned about it, so we can check later on from the case, it was okay, then that's ruled out. And of course, the most important ways what to do when the investigation is over, how we use the data. After the accident, we have agreed with the road administration that we can give them information very quickly if there are any actions needed very fast, that other road users might be in danger. And they also we can give them thumbs up that everything was good about roads, that they don't have to think about it. Of course, road administration is very keen to know why a fatal collision did happen, so we can give them information right away, what we have found out just after the collision. Same with vehicles. If there is some kind of vehicle defect that should maybe require vehicle administration to check all the vehicles, make a recall or something like that, we can give them initial information. But I think main use is we are in different working groups within road safety in Finland. All over our members are different working groups, so it's kind of integrated in all actions in Finland. The results of these investigations, we can, if there are some questions that arise from public or politicians, we have a database, comprehensive database on fatal accidents. For example, still people are thinking about safety belts, seat belts, if they are effective or not. People die because of them, don't they? So actually in each investigation, we estimate the effect of safety belt. And sometimes, very rarely, maybe once in 5 years, once in 6 years, it may have contributed to the fatality. But each year, in Finland, about 20 people would have been saved just by using seatbelt. We did a five-year analysis of the issue, and we found out 114 cases where seatbelt might have saved the fatality, and that is 10% of our fatalities, just by this invention from some country from 1960s.
Some country.
So. And of course, with those seatbelts, it's not only seatbelts, there are also other issues usually behind them, other risk factors like alcohol, speeding, so on. And it's all these that contribute, of course, to the causation and the consequences. Well, we do have, of course, some challenges all the time. And I mentioned about the data protection issues, confidential issues, and these are every year much more important in society, and that's a good thing. We have to keep up with that. Vehicle automation, we are very used to find out vehicle defects which are because of the collision, but how to get into the mind of the car. If it has all the features that needed to avoid collisions, why did it happen? We have investigated accidents with cars that collisions that should not have happened, and it's very difficult, even for us, to get into that information, into that mind of the car, and that is something we are working on it. And I hope the new vehicle safety regulations will give some help. And they will anyway, with all the safety features, give help. Well, funding, everybody talks about it. It's a common issue. I don't have to explain more on it. But also we have part-timers, lots of members. We are all the time trying to find the real experts and train them correctly to work on these road safety issues. And just to remind, further reading, European Union has been very active on these issues, and there was a series of different projects in beginning of 2000, Pendant, Safety Net, and Dakota, where in-depth investigations were touched, and at the moment in United Nations Global Forum for Road Safety, there is a safe system approach where also Sweden has once again been active, and we have contributed from in-depth investigations in that issue. So these things are happening, and we are not alone. We are just one participant in this important issue, and it means that there are lots of cooperation with different countries, and that's why we are here today as well, I think. So, thank you very much.
Kalle, can you join us on the stage? Sure. Excellent. Excellent overview of the work being done in the OTI, and I think most of us can only be jealous that every fatal incident is subject to an in-depth crash investigation. I think most of us would only aspire to that. There were two questions. I think we're going to have to cut it a little bit short because we are already at the end of our program. Malena. You'll get the opportunity to ask all of your questions directly. 1, 2, 3. So.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your great work. Two questions. On the one hand, if you conduct the investigation about the injuries, I'm wondering about the level of cooperation with the hospitals, because in order to find out the information, you need their collaboration, how that works. And secondly, more and more cars use dash cams, or they have already a camera actually integrated in the car. Are you allowed to use this footage, or do you include it as well in your evaluations? Thank you.
Yes and yes. We have physicians who have.
Kalle, can you just hold it very close?
Yeah, we have physicians that got access to hospital data, so we can get very much hospital data, which are checked by physician, and he is or she is responsible for finding out what kind of information is actually important for this collision investigation. And for dashcams, yes, they are very helpful. We have access to them when they are present, even if it's on vehicle only, integrated into vehicle, we have used those ones, and of course for private dashcams, and yes, they are very helpful and used all the time when we find out of them.
So,
give you first. Sorry. Yes, Sam Wade, Road Safety Ireland, #VisionZero. Cal, first of all, thank you very much. A really interesting presentation and an observation that collision investigations will actually become or get more sophisticated, and that will be part of the funding challenge. And it's then interrelated to my question for Lars. First of all, I would like to thank Sweden and VisionZero Academy. I know that our staff in policing in Ireland and road safety in Ireland have attended the VisionZero Academy, and they loved it. My question in regard to infrastructure and safe systems, geofencing, and I want to leap forward to 2030 and beyond. In your view, Lars, will and can geofencing be a game changer for road safety? And is it a knowledge exchange project or topic that people in this room can actually progress in the coming 12 or 18 months? Because Ireland, we believe it is a game changer if used in the right way and applied in the right way. Thank you.
Yes, when it comes to geofencing, I certainly think it's a game changer, and we have good experience right now. One of the things is actually you need to have that you need to have the ownership or the responsibility for this geofencing system to be national and authority rather than within each company and so on, which is one of the problems. So we actually are very much engaged in that in Sweden, and it's now working very well when it comes to public transport, where we have geofenced quite a few buses, so they can't exceed the speed limit. And first of all, you could expect that the drivers should be quite annoyed, but the reaction being the opposite. They are very, very comfortable by the fact that, well, we might be delayed and the timetable will not host. I can do nothing about it. Don't blame me. And it's such a joy from them working. I mean, imagine that you're working in the way you should solve the company's bad planning by driving illegally. So it's actually been quite a good way of doing it. And it's actually started in Sweden due to a terrorist attack in Stockholm, where we wanted to actually find a way to prevent some vehicles to drive or at least behave badly in some areas. And that has started to be quite good. And the other example is actually the e-scooters that was geofenced in 2 months when there were problems in the city center of Stockholm. And they said, if you don't fix it in 2 months, you will be out of Stockholm. And they did. So it's actually, I think that will be something that will be in the future, and I think the example with the bus drivers could be quite nice. That when we realize that this is the case, we could actually say, well, who should be annoyed by not being illegal? So it's actually a total game changer in the way we look at speed and responsibility. So, but we need to have good or better data, and the ownership of this need to be held, because I don't want Google to be the one in charge of this and rerouting you to places where people have paid you most and so on. So I think it's very important to have a democratic and institutional ownership of geofencing. So that's actually what we're working with. And Maria Kraft is one of our forefighters for that in Sweden. So contact her, and she would be delighted to talk warmly about geofencing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. One question, big 3 parts, but very fast, not furious. Kylie, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. It's very important because we know everything about after the investigation. So my question is clearly, if you are finished your job, you have a final report, it's done and dusted, okay? So do you have an obligation to send it to the court, or the court will be able to ask you about it, you have to send to me? In concrete case, and the second and the third will be
Yes, I will continue. We have seen how important is the post-crash response area, and exactly how important is the verified data collection, not only for the post-crash area, but for the prevention of in road safety. So I have 2 questions here in case of post-crash. First, if all the cases of fatalities, crashes with fatalities or seriously injured, the psychological help is provided for the victims. And the second question is about the in-depth investigation. If any case or at any stage, the families of the victims have the access to the investigation, and if so, when? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. I think there was both of us. You asked about the final report and use of it. First, about the court cases. Yes, court can ask it. We have to send it. And then usually we mention that actually by the legislation you can't use it. So yes, we send it, and usually the court decides that it cannot be used in court. Yeah, because it's written in legislation. So yeah, that goes in that way. And for victims, families of the victims, the final report is very important in many cases, because of course they are interested what happened, why happened, and they can ask the final report from us, and we will send it to them. And that's, I think, the most important thing about the final report is for the victims. We have lots of data there in our database in other ways collected that can be used for research and so on, but final report explains what happened. And that is a relief in those sad cases many times for families. About post-crash response, that is one thing that is not always in our method at the moment. Investigated. It can be, of course, but it's not in each case, and that is something that we will have to improve in the future as well, because it's also one of the key KPIs at the moment.
Thank you. One last and final question, and not made up of 3 parts, I hope.
No. As I already had hundreds of questions because I spent 1 month in OT with Kalle, so I already asked about all details, and thank you very much for that once more. I'm just eager, and I think it should be really relevant and inspiring for all of us. How did you, Kalle, manage that politicians and the road administrations and the officers use your data, work with that, and apply it in practice? How did you manage it?
Well, I didn't start the managing of it, so it started 1968, and that's very important in a long history. It was possible to start a cooperation, and with such a heritage, it's not an issue at the moment in Finland. It's a cooperation between stakeholders. The only thing we have to show that we got results, we got the answer needed. After that, there's no question about the importance of this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kalle. Fascinating, and I hope the partners that are going to be joining with you on the exchange this year will be benefiting from the great depth of experience that is there in Finland. Thank you. So to close our proceedings today, we have my new boss, Magda Kopczynska, who was recently appointed as the Director General in DG Transport and Mobility, is here to close the event for us.
Problem with IT technology is that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and when it doesn't, we are in trouble. Thank you, Sarah, for the warm words. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Because I'm hearing echo, so I'm just worried, but maybe it's echo in my head. Very warm good afternoon, and maybe just a few words of explanation on my side. Indeed, I took the job now on the 1st of August, but some of you in the room may know that I had my encounter with road safety community a couple of years ago when I was a director responsible for, among other things, road safety. I haven't met and worked with you since autumn 2016, and it's very interesting because I entered the room late, admit, sat here in the first row, listened to Kalle's presentation and then questions and answers, and I had immediately the sense of déjà vu why I so much appreciated working with the community dealing with road safety. Because on the one hand, it's the important topic that we still have to address, and on the other hand, it's this unbelievable commitment that really goes beyond the normal work-related commitment, because we deal, or you deal with important things, but also, I think, because you bring about the change.
And it's not as fast as we would like to see it, but it is gradually happening. And of course, a lot has happened over the last 7 years, and it will take a while for me to really catch up with every single thing that has been happening in and around road safety in the EU and in every single EU member state. But the commitment is exactly the same. So where I want to start, even though this is not where I was supposed to start, I want to say big thank you for all that work and for demonstrating basically every day that we share the common cause and then we share the common objective. And I was just thinking that the Road Safety Exchange project is just, it's one of those projects, if it wasn't there, we should have invented it earlier, because it again comes to the core of how we make road safety work in the EU. It's an important political topic. Governments know they need to do things, but actually the change is brought in by the fact that people meet, that people talk, that people exchange views, that people exchange ideas, that people share how they solve problems, but people also, I hope, share how they don't solve problems. It's not only about sharing best practices, it's also about sharing bad practices. And in the European Commission, we have a complex relationship with so-called pilot projects coming from the European Parliament, because very often, sorry, I take it back, don't quote me on that. Occasionally, the ideas coming from the European Parliament are great ideas, but very difficult to see impacts and effects on the ground. While this one is actually the opposite. It's an idea that we managed to put in place, and big thanks to the team that was managing it, Antonio Venoso and the whole team behind the European Transport Safety Council. You made that project work, and okay, we haven't caused a revolution with this project, but judging from what I heard already with the questions, what I heard from colleagues before coming here, it does deliver the results. It's practical, it's hands-on, it's a learning that will bring the results. And of course, we won't see the outcome immediately in the next couple of months, maybe not even next year, but I do believe that with all the topics that have been handled as part of the exchange, be it, again, crash investigations in Lithuania, new road safety or revised road safety strategy in Greece, support to Romania when it comes to implementation of relevant pieces of legislation, tackling drink driving in Portugal, just a few of the examples. I mean, these are concrete things that have to be addressed, and they can only be addressed at a national level. But the easiest way to address it is to talk to other nations that have already dealt with them, and they know what to do with data, what to do with accident investigation. I mean, you name it, you know it much better than I do. And I think the success of the project can be also measured by a much greater interest in this second stage or this second round of the project that we are launching today. But before I go there, maybe once again to remind myself, because you were there so you don't need to be reminded, that this project is successful or was successful in spite of the terribly difficult circumstances in which it started. It started in the times of COVID. And of course, by now we are very smart and clever, and we can talk online and we can exchange views online, but we all know that nothing beats a possibility of sitting in one room, talking over coffee, going to a site and visiting a concrete place or site where something is happening, something is developed. So in spite of all those difficulties, you have delivered. So seriously, I mean, this is taxpayers' money very, very well spent. That's what I want to say. And I'm happy to say that to European Parliament at any moment. As I said, the interest in the current round is bigger. We have 19 countries that want to take part, that want to be the active parties. It seems the project or the type of information sharing is so good that I think Lithuania and Sweden already went for the first study visit in August, even before this started. So, we like to think that when we launch projects, we use the money to sort of for an inspiration, for incentive to make things happening. And I very much hope that that we are creating this culture of exchange, this culture of talking, this culture of sharing practices. I know it was there before because I had been in meetings like that when I still dealt with road safety. But again, with this project, the first and the second edition, we are really trying to make it work even better. We will now be creating this intranet that should serve as a perfect place to store information, share information, but also, which I find extremely valuable, making sure that the outcomes of what you're exchanging, what you're discussing, can be more easily shared beyond the always limited group of people who will be participating in specific exchanges. So I hope that we will make this exchange concept even stronger and even more present across all EU member states. And there are also countries outside the EU that are interested, and UN is asking about it. That's what we should be doing. We set the tone, and then everybody copies, and they do it at least as well as we do. But I think we should definitely not forget, and again, I know you don't, but we should not forget that we are not there yet. And that when it comes to numbers for last year, 20,600 people were killed. It's a fewer number than in 2019, which is probably a good year to compare it against, because of course COVID years don't count. But even though we see that for 2023, the preliminary numbers show that there is improvement, but again, as we always all say at every occasion, every single death fatality is one too many. And this is also why we will keep supporting projects like that. And you will see the publication of numbers tomorrow, which unfortunately I cannot be present at, but Christian will be there, which is also why I wanted to take the opportunity to be here today so that I can speak to you. But I think what's important is that we keep repeating that the Vision Zero is still there, and then we absolutely have to deliver that, and that we have to try to halve the number of road deaths by 2030. But then when I look at the topics that you have chosen specifically to work on in the second edition of the project, nothing new. Safety of the infrastructure, in particular when it comes to vulnerable road users, making towns and cities safer, enforcing road traffic rules more effectively, again, quality of driver education, and helping saving lives of motorcyclists. And let's hope that we will be able to actually come up with specific ways to make things better when it comes to those topics. And of course, the European Road Safety Exchange is what you should use to push on all those topics. But maybe what I think is important to remember, that on our side, in addition to working with you on the project, supporting you in different fora and in different ways, we will also keep pushing the importance of the topic to politicians' agenda. In the informal council in Barcelona, which mostly discussed the question of connectivity and mobility, Commissioner Vălean, on purpose, I mean not on purpose, of her own initiative, mentioned the topic of road safety in her intervention, and was very clear, telling all ministers who were around the table, don't forget this topic. There are things that we can do better together. There are things we can learn about from one another. And we at the Commission, we are here to assist you, and we are here to help you. And she did provoke at least a couple of ministers to actually talk about road safety. And I know you will tell me politicians talk, but we do the work. But you also know that we need politicians to be aware that it matters, because all their decisions on all those points, safety of infrastructure, what happens in cities, what we do with driver education, ultimately, this is the thing that will finally one day do the trick. So big thanks for all the work you've been doing, not only as part of this project, but in general, and I do look forward to many other occasions to meet and discuss with you issues related to road safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Magda. From my side also, I'm rounding up on behalf of the Commission. I love the 3 words that we have on the poster here, which is partnership. I think we've proven with the first edition of the Road Safety Exchange that we really do create true partnerships between member states, between the agencies and authorities from which you all stem. We are innovating in our ways of working, in the solutions that we discover from each other, and I think we can continue to do so in this edition, and we're having real impact. Magda mentioned some of the impact that has been measured from the first edition. I know this one is going to be even better. So thank you all so much for your cooperation. I'm going to hand over now to Antonio to introduce this evening's lecture.